Badlands, running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Burning Bright. How are you doing today, sir?
I've got a man flu, so it's most
which end is it
thing.
coming out of?
It's just a feeling. It's just overall vibes. But Baby Bright is sick for the first time. His mother is freaking out, but he's fine. She's doing a good job. He's going to get through it. This is how he builds the immune system.
Kids get sick. Wait till they get to daycare. Go to daycare. It's like every day they come home with something.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
That's what I hear. So, otherwise just completely exhausted, and we'll have a good show anyway.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll come back to that at the end and let the audience decide. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be irrationally upset about from the news cycle today. So
I find it funny these days. It doesn't upset me too much.
No, it doesn't upset me either. That was a joke, but it is funny. There's a lot of teased stuff. James O'Keefe's Nothing Burger. We can talk about that a little bit. Anna Paulina Luna grifting again. There's the big Trump announcement that he's talking about. It might just be Medicare, and that's it. Which
I saw other sources saying other things. We can talk about that though.
Yeah, and then the trade deal stuff. I know you had some geopolitical things.
I'm not getting more wrong about the China-U.S. pincer, and I think we got some actuals, not just narratives. I think we got one little actual to that end today, or two actually, that to the theory that Trump and China are both executing a pincer against the central bank. But
you sound like a conspiracy theorist. But yeah, we'll get into that. We'll see what else happens. Big night though on Badlands. We had the debut episode of the Shipwreck show, and I didn't actually get to watch the whole thing. I barely watched any of my son at his concert tonight. I don't know if you've ever been to a grade school concert, but
I probably was when I was in school. Yeah,
it's somehow it's cute, but it's worse than you'd expect. Yeah, it's a disaster.
Does he play an instrument or singing or something?
No, just sing. Well, he gets in the car and he's hyping himself up. Dad, you know I'm the second best singer in my class. How specific for a first grader? Who's the first best then?
Rankings.
Yeah, and then we get to the concert and he barely opens his mouth. He forgets to do the kazoo with everybody. The guy next to him's bumping his shoulder, dude, play your kazoo. It was funny. But anyway,
welcome to Badlands Shipwreck. I watched half the show. The chat was popping off. Glad to see people supporting her. I was pleasantly surprised and also a little bit threatened over the fact that within the first 2 or 3 minutes, she must have dropped 11 F-bombs, and they were quality. They were quality. They weren't she was using them in a Bostonian manner that I really appreciated, where they're just, it's a descriptor of everything that you need to really get your point across, mostly directed toward James O'Keefe and Con Inc.
Great.
She wasn't calling them that, but I was F-bombs, going after Con Inc., people being gay, faking gay, not homosexual gay. But yeah, fits right in.
Some homosexual gay, but yeah, she's a great fit. Spetzel in the chat says she got $1,282 in Rumble rants. I don't know if that's that. I heard it was about 800, but that's even better.
I wasn't there at the very beginning, so.
That's okay. Yeah, so you definitely.
We were trying to. I think Jess got all of them to send to her, because we've got to teach her how to use the powers of Rumble. But yeah.
I knew I wanted her on Badlands back when Anna Paulina Luna did her task force stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I found somebody who hates Anna Paulina Luna as much as I do.
We kind of like her though. I mean,
well, it's a love-hate, mostly hate type thing. I hate what she does. I hate everything about who she is as a person. Let's say that. But anyway, when I was chatting with her before the show, I was like, hey, you ready for everything? She's like, yeah, with this James O'Keefe, Nothing Burger, whatever, I'm all set. She's like, I hope it's okay that, I dislike James O'Keefe or something. I was like, oh my gosh, if only you knew.
You're going to get along well here. Yeah. You're going to do good here.
Yeah, you're going to do well in this Badlands audience. But yeah, we do have a couple sponsors of tonight's show. I think we're going to start things off with some Field of Greens, and I just got stocked up. I'm so pumped. Got my wild berry flavor back, and they're bigger sizes now, which is amazing. Actually, I might even. I do.
Damn, I'm out of Field of Greens. I need a.
Yeah, I noticed at Guard.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm just kidding, bro.
That's probably why
your dad bod looks great.
It's gonna be in remission by Deadwood.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's the pledge.
Did my mic go out or something? Because I heard a noise.
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, new bigger size, which is awesome. But let me get them pulled up here. There we go. What is the most unhealthy snack that you've eaten lately? Your crazy schedule makes eating 5 servings of fruit and veggies impossible. We're human. I don't always eat healthy. You don't always eat healthy. That's why doctors created Field of Greens. A delicious glass of Field of Greens daily is like nutritional armor for your body. It's the diet insurance, as we call it here. Each fruit and vegetable was doctor selected for a specific health benefit. There's a heart health group, lungs and kidney groups, metabolism, even healthy weight. I love the energy I get with Field of Greens, but most of all, I love that even if I have a cheat day, which is pretty much every day, I can take Field of Greens and all my worries go away. Only Field of Greens makes you this better health promise. Your doctor will notice your improved health, or you get your money back, and we can get you started with a special discount, 20% off your first order. Just use code JOHN, J-O-N, at fieldofgreens.com. That's code J-O-N at fieldofgreens.com. All right.
Nice. Complaining, and I'm going to get some Field of Greens on the way soon.
Oh,
That's all you got to do. You got to bitch within digital earshot of Jess, and then she'll hook you up.
No, she'll hook you up.
Yep.
That's great. Thanks, Jess. That only works for hosts.
Right.
Not Zach doesn't complain enough.
General.
Yeah.
Right.
Zach complains privately about that stuff. And so he never gets the bennies. Yeah. But if you complain publicly, you get them. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I do have another ad I got to get to, but I'm going to wait a little bit on that. And then we'll have some Rumble Studio ads, support Rumble Studio as well a little bit later. But yeah, let's start with Anna Paulina Luna. Okay. You know, I know some people like her. Some people think she's part of the plan because of the whole her being on the secret task force of the declassification stuff.
Less than 10, man.
Yep. I see her as a social media grifter, honestly. And to be even more honest, that's how I view everybody in Congress. I actually interviewed my first congressman today on my Daily Herold show. First congressman, and I was pretty blunt and direct with him. Like, I asked about election fraud. I asked about what else I asked about? Oh, I asked why we're paying our taxes. I told him to his face that I think Congress is part of the problem and illegitimate, like all these things. And it was a really good interview, and he responded actually pretty well, all political answers. But that's how I view Congress. And Anna Paulina Luna, whatever topic is trending, that's how she operates in Congress. Today, she came out with a bill to revoke or whatever the repeal or strip away. I don't even know the exact words, but the Patriot Act, because today was the day of the implementation of Real ID. And it's just more of the same from her, in my opinion. You guys may not agree.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously I was joking about the less than 10 thing. Somebody in our chat said that earlier. When it comes to the plan, Patriot plans, again, we've been talking about this a lot. We all agree, again, this is the Devolution Power Hour. You believe that there is a Patriot plan implemented there. Q drops, all that kind of stuff. Opinions vary, but I certainly believe there are Patriot plans. I definitely do not believe that Anna Paulina Luna is read in on any kind of Patriot White Hat plans. We're never going to know this stuff. Of course, it's always possible, right? The thing is, that the reason I think we can get annoyed sometimes with that rhetoric is, sometimes a spade is just a spade. And now, with that said, I think that there are people operating on the game board. There are politicians, media figures, etc., who are forwarding whatever's in their own best interest. And do I believe sometimes that patriots kind of guide them in certain ways without them knowing? Yeah, sure. Like, I think that if there's Ghost in the Machine, etc., Donald Trump himself kind of laying out bait, laying out breadcrumbs, if it's that kind of interpretation of such and such is involved with the plan, I can get on board with her doing these things is not damaging anything. Like, I don't think it's hurting us in any way. And, you know, on the just pure surface level, if I knew nothing about her, do I like that we've got congresswomen like talking about JFK D-class and Patriot Act sucks? Sure. Yes, sure. That's better than 10 years ago. But, you know, you've also got to understand that these are people operating on their own incentive structures, and that if you believe there's Patriot plans, like if you think that Anna Paulina Luna is being pulled into a room by Trump in the less than 10 and being told like, this is what you're going to do as part of the narrative operation, I just think that that's silly. I think it's insulting to the American people. Extremely insulting, actually. And again, I go back to the battle space. I think that Donald Trump's navigating a certain battle space. I think he has more information than just about anybody. I would like to believe that somebody like Anna Paulina Luna is pretty damn far away from that gravitational center of Patriot plans. And yet, she's downstream of it. She may be accidentally or on purpose forwarding some good stuff. Either way, the conclusion here would be, as Chris says all the time, as we say, as Shipwreck said on her show tonight about other figures, I think she mentioned Luna as well, we don't owe these people trust. Trust the plan doesn't mean trust anything any American politician says at any time if it makes your emotions feel good. Like, it's completely ridiculous. I even saw big accounts tonight talking about inside sources and all that. It's like, we're doing that again? We're going back to 2016 inside sources? Like, I hope not. So I think this audience understands that you should trust yourself. Whatever plans you think are in the offing, you do not need the truth bestowed upon you by Twitch thoughts masquerading as congressmen.
Yeah, I really feel too, like, think about this. Think of how Congress, the House and the Senate operate right now. I'm pretty sure there's like this unspoken or probably even spoken agreement where they're going to pass their bills. Like, they're going to introduce a bill, it's going to pass in the House, and it's going to go to the Senate, and it's never even going to get brought to the floor, and vice versa. And so all these people, they'll get to, you know, the social media videos and the clips of them on the floor debating a bill, talking about the Patriot Act, whatever. It's going to pass the House and it's going to die in the Senate. Like, so that alone, they know that going into this. That alone kind of proves that it's just for social media clicks. It's just for the clout. And that's why Congress is relevant. They've passed like one actual significant bill the entire term so far, and it was the Lake and Riley Act. Otherwise, it's been just random, non-essential bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, what are they actually doing? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, to me, I've said this about the deep state, but I'll say it even about MAGA grifters or even earnest Congress people who are trying to push the Overton window forward. I don't think that's what's going on here. But it is still a good thing when some mix of deep staters, corrupt politicians, and just earnest grifters, like I think Luna is, it's a good thing when they are reading the social and cultural tea leaves, and they're coming away from that reading thinking like, you know what I need to do to endear myself to the American people is I need to talk about transparency. I need to go after all these conspiracy theories, right? Like, that is a good thing that's the battle space we're in right now. But I just choose to separate the net effects of that. It's like, if the enemy is in retreat, and the enemy, one of the last stages of retreat in the info war, which is what we talk about a lot, I named it Overton's Goalpost a couple years ago, is when they start using your rhetoric to try to blend in with you. That is a good thing, but it doesn't mean that you all of a sudden start trusting everything these people say, because as Ghost says in the chat, the entire point supposed to be of the Great Awakening is to discern for yourself rather than just extending absurd degrees of benefit of the doubt to people who have not earned it.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, a lot of this, it pacifies people. You know, it's like, oh, she introduced this bill, you know, now we don't have to worry about it 'cause we just have to wait for this bill to go through.
Yeah.
Even during my interview
Illegitimate
today,
Congress.
yeah, even with my interview today, I was kind of talking about this, like, hey, our elections are illegitimate. I think you guys are part of the problem and fraudulent, but it's up to you, the illegitimate, fraudulent Congress, to fix the fraudulent election system in which you benefit from. And it's like a circle, like it's never going to come to fruition. And so what's what's the point of this? I had a really good point I was going to make with this, and now I already forgot it. What I was saying, pacifying. Damn
illegitimate Congress bills.
Yeah, but you had said something, and it made me think of. Oh, it pacifies. It'll come to me in a little bit. But anyway, this Anna Paulina Luna stuff, it's going to take something pretty drastic for me to believe that she's part of the plan, because I haven't actually seen it. I haven't seen anything that proves it. It's just wishful thinking, in my opinion. But that's fine. It is what it is. People can disagree with that. That's totally cool. But the next, like the second biggest thing, I was going to show this. This is what she posted today. Breaking today, introduced the American Privacy Restoration Act to fully repeal the Patriot Act and strip rogue intelligence officers of their extraordinary mass surveillance powers. There we go.
You know, just one more point I want to make on this too is that I often like playing devil's advocate and kind of like arguing from the supposition I disagree with. So let me go all the way to Anna Paulina Luna is part of the plan, and this is a narrative op like being piloted by patriots.
I don't know, bro.
Chris says versions of this that I agree with, but I believe that Donald Trump, part of why he kept using the word mandate in 2024 is because, yes, there are patriot plans, but there is also, I think, a high degree of sort of reflectivity going on, a feedback loop of Trump throwing things out there, whatever you want to use, the Patriot plan, throwing things out there, seeing where the American people are at, right? So the Trump movement has moved the American people forward. I think we would all agree with that in terms of where we're at. The conversations that you can even have publicly that you couldn't have 8 years ago, never mind 2 years ago, that can all be true. But if the American people demand more faster, as Chris is the patron saint of saying, Trump is the one who gets permission to move forward. And I think my problem with the Anna's part of the plan type of thing is, okay, let's just take that. That's ridiculous. It's insulting. It's completely ridiculous. It's clownish. And you're able to go forward if you want to go forward. And hopefully, if enough people go forward and say, like, this is really stupid and you're talking down to all of us like we're 7, can we actually have transparency and accountability? Then maybe the Patriot plan gets permission to be more transparent than they've been.
Yeah, so I think I kind of thought of what I was going to say earlier with, and it's going to come back to this point. When Congress does stuff like this, and it came up in my interview, like, yeah, we have the SAVE Act, we passed it. That's how we fix our elections. We just got to pass the SAVE Act. It's got to be brought up in the Senate. And so it gives them an excuse to like, oh, we're doing our part, you know? The same thing with Anna Paulina Luna here. But yeah, when it comes down to that stuff, it's either like, that's just an excuse. Everything can be explained away as either part of the plan or to wake up the normies. That's actually the biggest pushback I got from James O'Keefe. I posted a video of Vladimir Putin. I'll show this. I love this. You hated it, but
you better not show my boy getting rugged.
He got rugged, man. And
after 7 goals, you'd be exhausted too.
This isn't exhaustion, bro. This is just not aware of his surroundings.
That's the moment he joined the Sovereign Alliance.
Yeah, he probably like whoever put this rug out, dead. But yeah. So when I was talking about, I posted this video to the James O'Keefe stuff because okay, guys, James O'Keefe video that he had to go in hiding for out of fear for his life went dark for like 7 days. Alex Jones comes out pimping this thing. There's rumors from, I think it started from Alex Jones, don't quote me on that, that there was like somebody within the Trump administration that's hiding information about the Epstein files, preventing its release. Like there's just a lot of rumors floating around about what this could be. And it's like hearsay evidence from a third party that says Prince Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Slept with minors, which I'm pretty sure we already knew that anyway. Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
It's like
common knowledge.
What's the big deal? But people got mad like, oh, it's just for the normies, man. It's just for the normies.
Yeah.
Like, no, like BBC, all these other mainstream outlets were reporting the Prince Andrew stuff. Everybody knows about the Epstein file thing. Like that was a huge, massive meme. That's like one of the most iconic memes ever. Epstein didn't hang himself. Like bro,
totally.
It's not for the normies, but that's an excuse. Everything can be explained away with either trust the plan or it's for the normies. Anything that doesn't go along with what you think is going to happen.
Right. And, you know, again, part of the rhetoric here is that if you want to, a lot of Anons, a lot of info war people, we use war terminology, right? Info war, fifth generation warfare. Well, you need to start acting more like digital soldiers. And I've never been in the army, but I know enough about it to know that, yeah, there's orders and all that kind of stuff. There's a command structure. There's also an understanding that people can disagree that are on the same team, and that like you're not disrupting unity if you're thinking you should go in a different direction there.
We get called gatekeepers when we do that. If we don't agree with that stuff, we're gatekeepers.
The irony of that is astounding. The irony of saying we don't all have to be on the same page and can all actually do and say whatever we want and go in whatever direction we want in is now being called gatekeeping.
Insane.
Which is astounding. But the point there is that I didn't catch all of it, but I caught some of what Shipwreck was saying about O'Keefe. And I said this at Guard. I've actually kind of inverted on my old mentality of message over messenger. Because if you look at the message that O'Keefe put out, yeah, fine. Like, okay. Do I think it's bad that maybe it reached some normies who somehow didn't know this information? No, I don't think that's bad. What I do think is bad, however, is that imagine a normie waking up by seeing the most ridiculously dramatic selfie video of James O'Keefe, like leaving the camera on the floor, very somberly saying he has to go into hiding, standing up and walking out of frame. And then, you know, I always like to imagine that he had to come back and pick that camera up afterwards and be like, that was awesome. I nailed it. I nailed my take. If you think that like a normie that didn't know about the Epstein stuff was like, you know who I can really trust now is this fucking guy right here. This is not how I want to be seen. So, you know, if you think this is waking up the normies, then the normies are going to think that you're a bunch of buffoons.
No, I don't think the normies are following James O'Keefe.
No, I don't think so either.
Twitter.
I'm going dark. I'm not suicidal. Pray for me. This one scares me, guys.
Wow. Damn. Stunning and brave. I mean, again, is it part of the plan? Sure. Maybe it's narrative offshoot 427B subsection X of the plan. It also could just be a social media whore doing something really dramatic that Alex Jones then immediately boosts. So the message can be fine, but the delivery of it is embarrassing, and you should be embarrassed if you're defending it.
Yeah, you're real spicy tonight with everything.
Got my Dayquil.
You got your Dayquil in you?
Mix the Dayquil and coffee. Another half hour, I'm gonna hit the wall.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, you're spot on, and the message over messenger. Maybe sometimes both are important.
Yeah.
Like both things, especially with how things are going, and I don't know. There's so much. We're at a weird like inflection point. I want to say. Especially with the Trump administration and where things are at, like Congress is clearly not going to come through for Trump and support his agenda. They've made that very clear. With what Tom Tillis, is that his name? Tom? I don't even know his first name, but Tillis is like stonewalling the most important district attorney, even though he admitted the guy's qualified. Like we're not going to get any help from that branch of government. The judiciary is clearly acting out of step. It's ridiculous. Trump has no help. He has to do it all in the executive, and maybe there's more going on behind the scenes. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. Like probably our closing discussion is going to be about the executive branch and Trump in a Devo or post Devo term, because again we don't know the full details of what's actually going on. We're speculating, but what that means when you have Congress and the judiciary who are clearly working against you, like they're impeding what Trump is trying to do. And I think we could have an interesting discussion about that.
And that will be a discussion where I will talk about Patriot plans, because I do think there are Patriot plans.
Okay,
it's just not super gay ones.
I've been waiting for you to talk about Patriot plans. But yeah, well, let's get to our next sponsor, and then maybe get to some of the geopolitical stuff, and then we can circle back.
Reach around.
There's another story. Yeah, the James O'Keefe reach around. I thought there was another story I wanted to get into before we got to the geopolitical, but I don't
it wasn't
remember.
the economic thing or the
Well, it could be. Oh, it was Trump's big announcement.
The announcement. Yeah.
Yep. Let me do lean real quick first. You're going to think I'm describing weight loss injections, but I'm not. These remarkable weight loss testimonials came from a doctor-formulated weight loss supplement called Lean. Patty S. says, I finally found a weight loss product that works. I wanted to lose 20 pounds, and Lean really curbs my appetite. Lori M. wrote, I've struggled to get weight off, and Lean has been a lifesaver. I've been losing a couple pounds a week or more. Kelly F. said, amazing. I immediately noticed an energy boost and a healthy weight loss in weight and would promote this product to anyone. Lean was created by a doctor and university researcher to target the goals of GLP-1s, but without the injections. The studied ingredients in Lean have been shown to lower blood sugar, radically reduce appetite, and burn fat by converting it into energy. So if you're struggling to lose weight and healthy diet and exercise are not enough, Lean is just for you. We can get you started with 20% off. Just use code JOHN20 at takelean.com. That's code JOHN20 at takelean.com. Disclaimer, results vary. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and is not a substitute for care from a healthcare provider. There we go. Okay. You remember Trump's big announcement video?
Yeah.
Were you on a show we talked about that recently? Were you watching?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Let me pull this up. So there's two videos of it. One while he was talking to Carney, and then one while he was talking about it was during Witkoff's confirmation thing, swearing in.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar, and that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that up. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here.
And the context of this too was it came right while they were discussing the Middle East stuff, like stuff with the Houthis. The Houthis are going to stop bombing the United States ships. And Trump has had some like positive comments about the Houthis and like how brave they are the last couple of days. It's also interesting that Israel had no idea that Trump was going to make that statement about, we're going to be done, or that's what's being reported anyway. We're going to be done bombing the Houthis. Now, this is the other one that he said. And this one, the way he says this is what made me think it wasn't like Iran or Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords, because he says something about like it's a development for this country, like the United States. But take a listen.
And those days are over. Those days are over. And, I said before in our meeting with the new and very talented Prime Minister of Canada that we have some very big announcement to make. It's not about trade. It's about something else, but it's going to be a truly earth-shattering and positive development for this country and for the people of this country. And that'll take place sometime within the next few days.
Development for this country. So lots of speculation. Most people thought it was something to do with the Abraham Accords because they're going to Saudi Arabia next week. But this came out from Politico, so grain of salt. Politico is a pretty fake news organization. But it's this: Trump to pitch sweeping Medicare drug price plan. And this is what the administration or officials in the administration, anonymous ones familiar with the matter, are saying is the big announcement. The president on Tuesday teased a very big announcement within the next week that one of the people familiar characterized as a reference to the drug pricing proposal. The other two did not know whether it was the big announcement, but confirmed the drug price plan was likely to be announced in the next week. Should Trump go ahead with the order, it would represent a major confrontation between the White House and the deep-pocketed pharmaceutical industry. But yeah, so this is what some people are saying. It's just a Medicare drug pricing plan, which is a big announcement. It's just not what people thought it would be. And I kind of said that on my show the other day. It's like Trump is pretty hyperbolic. This is probably going to be a rug pull of sorts. Not that it's not going to be something big or important. It's just probably not going to be the actual biggest announcement like we're all thinking it could be. Something earth-shattering.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've steeled ourselves for these kind of things. As G always says, if you're not standing on the rug, you can't get rugged. But that doesn't mean that it can't have great effects. What was interesting is I didn't see the Medicare thing. I had seen claims in the media that the announcement was all about renaming the Persian Gulf. So the fact that we both came to, like, we're seeing completely different propagandist estimates or predictions over this, I think is part of the fun Trump and them have with these big announcements. Like, this is going to be the biggest thing you ever seen. This one, you know, go ahead.
I was saying, isn't it crazy? Like Trump, that sea there is like by Iran, and Trump's like, yeah, we're gonna rename that bitch. That's mine now.
And that would be big, but it would be seen. I think it would be ridiculed by the mainstream and attacked. Ghost would know a lot more about this. I'm sure he'll go into more detail about this stuff on his next couple appearances. But just little subheads here. Trump admin to announce the U.S. will call Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf during Middle East visit. The name of the body of water has long been a point of contention for many Arab countries. Google Maps labels it the Persian Gulf, so that's basically the official regime name of it is the Persian Gulf. Iran, home of the former Persian Empire, threatened in 2012 to sue Google for not naming the body of water altogether. So as far as I understand this, and this is not my area of expertise, if he did rename it, it would be a shot, to your point, against Iran or against the origins of Iran. And I think this could be one of these funny bicamerals with him where, you know, our immediate reaction might be like, if this is the announcement, it's kind of a nothing burger. And yet I really do believe, speaking of Patriot plans or just the war in general, this does go back a long, long way. You know, some of my favorite Trump comms are the ones where he references ancient enemies and how far back this stuff goes. The Middle East, you know, cradle of civilization, depending on, you know, your mileage on what you believe in terms of history, but also the cradle probably of deep state civilization as well. And, you know, the Persian Empire versus the Greeks and the Rome, etc. It's this nearly biblical kind of touchstone for East versus West, collectivism versus sovereignty, like baked into that region. Yeah. And I could genuinely see an announcement like this actually being huge to people who are thinking in those terms and being huge to our enemies that most people don't know. And when I say enemies, I'm not saying the nation of Iran, like many people, or like Ghost. I believe that Iran is going to sign peace deals with Trump. I believe that Israel are the ones being put into a pincer move. I think that Iran is part of the new allies that have been branded the Axis. But certainly the Iranian regime that was kind of put in there by the CIA in the 70s are our enemies. It's all about who are the enemies we're talking about. And I think Chris has talked about this, but, you know, Chris has mentioned like the final boss is Xerxes. And, you know, go into your history there. It would be kind of funny if Trump starts like throwing out ancient comms of, yeah, we're taking this back. Like, to your point about Iran, if you don't think about this as the nation state of Iran or the government of Iran, and you think like Trump and whoever he represents is renaming a story and taking that story away from the Persian Empire, which may or may not be like the origins of the modern incarnation of evil, then it actually could be a big announcement. It's just one that's going to be more of a meme in the normie sphere.
Well, and there's so many interesting things going on with this, because like we're going over there. The Houthis have said they're done bombing U.S. ships. We'll see if it actually holds. But Trump, like, okay, I agree to that. A week before he goes over that way, and that's an Iran-backed militia. Yeah. And then on top of that, he's not actually technically renaming it. He's like, the United States is now going to refer to it as this.
Yes.
You know, so
right.
You know, there's some degrees of actual renaming, but it's something direct. It's like a direct shot at Iran. And that's what's interesting, because we're in negotiations with Iran, and Iran's at the center of a lot of interesting other negotiations, because Russia and Iran are very close. I think Saudi Arabia and Iran are at least tolerable of each other. China and Iran. Well. I mean, it's just an interesting move to make right before you go over there, while we're trying to get all these other economic and peace deals and nuclear deals in place. And you're like, here, Iran, here's a big old middle finger for you right before we walk in the door. It's just an interesting move, but I love it, because that's how Trump operates. Like Trump does not bow down to anybody, and he comes from a position of power. And when you get people like emotional and reactive, that's one of the better negotiating positions to come at, when you're the level-headed one and they're like freaking out with emotion. It's perfect.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I think, and I know Ghost talks about this a lot when it comes to Israel. I agree with a lot of his commentary there. I don't know as much about it. But I think part of what Trump is doing here is I've been talking about this in the economic realm, but I think it also fits in the sort of war for peace realm. I think we talked about this a bit at GART. Trump is navigating. Before Elon Musk said it, I referred to this as the Kobayashi Maru, what he's navigating over there with Iran and Israel in particular. It is the impossible task. The reason I say that is because if he went all in favor of Iran from the start of this, he gets demonized by the quote-unquote right. If he goes all in favor of Israel, he gets demonized by the quote-unquote left and many in MAGA. Now, he's supported Israel, and yet he's moving the Overton window toward Iran and further away from Israel. Like, if you do watch any of those sit-downs with him and Netanyahu and come away from that thinking that, like, he's a Zionist puppet, you're just not watching the same thing I think the rest of us are. But I think, this would be the latest example, if it is related to Iran or seen as aggressive toward Iran, where Trump gets to kind of publicly support Israel and seem like the Zionists, etc., makes it that much more effective and gives him much more narrative shielding when he does make peace with Iran. So, and recently he's been talking about part of the whole debacle in the real or fake Signalgate hoax was the idea that Trump does not want to attack Iran and is trying to make sure that Israel does not attack them. So I think you're going to start to see the goalpost shift in the public narrative where Trump is going to get permission to isolate Israel politically, because he's for the last 2 years been saying, like, hey, we're supporting Israel, we're going against the terrorists, all this kind of stuff. Well, now he's got the Houthis to back down, according to the public narrative, as he pointed out. What if he gets Iran to back down too, and it's not them that are seen as the aggressors? Then he gets the permission to kind of turn on Israel. And I think you're already seeing this play out with Ukraine and Russia, where he started out like against Russia and in favor of Ukraine. And nowadays he doesn't say anything bad about Russia. He just trashes Ukraine every time he gets up there. You're probably going to see that turn happen with Israel in the coming weeks. Yeah,
maybe. And maybe he doesn't even have to be the one that does it. Because if they just slowly start distancing themselves from, the bad twin of Israel, Netanyahu and his regime, I think they're going to kind of do it for themselves. And I think a lot of that is already like there. Like I don't want to spend money on Israel anymore. I don't want to spend money on any foreign country anymore. Yeah. But the fact that they didn't tell Israel about, we're going to be done bombing the Houthis, that's one interesting data point that I keep going back to, if it's true. But then also, did you see, so, when Trump came out with the Riviera of the Gaza Strip or whatever, and everybody freaked out, like, what is Trump doing here? And we're like, well, this is not probably what Trump actually wants to do. He is trying to instigate these other countries in the region to like step in and do it. And now we have Israel themselves talking about going in and kind of doing their own thing there, and like this 5-year plan, or maybe even longer. And they want a U.S.-led administration post-war. It's just weird. It took like a weird turn, and we haven't had these other countries step in yet. But this is on like the eve of Trump going to Saudi Arabia, one of the countries we believe is playing the biggest role in the Middle East in terms of brokering all these peace deals and handling all these peace deals. But this is the story. I'll just read a couple of quotes here, and I'll pass over to you. The United States and Israel have discussed the possibility of Washington leading a temporary post-war administration of Gaza, according to 5 people familiar with the matter. That's a lot of people. If you ever have over 4 people familiar with the matter, then it's 100% true.
Right. So
just keep that in mind. The high-level consultations have centered around a transitional government headed by a U.S. official that would oversee Gaza until it had been demilitarized and stabilized, and a viable Palestinian administration had emerged, the sources said. And this is the part that I love, because this is a literal rerun to see if we've learned anything from the last time we were in the Middle East on an extended occupation. Okay, because they're proposing the same exact thing we did in Iraq right here with Gaza. The sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity, as they were not authorized to discuss the talks publicly, compared the proposal to the Coalition Provisional Authority in Iraq that Washington established in 2003, shortly after the U.S.-led invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein. The authority was perceived by many Iraqis as an occupying force, and it transferred power to an interim Iraqi government in 2004 after failing to contain a growing insurgency. So if this actually comes through, I'd be surprised. I do feel like Saudi Arabia is going to play a direct role. And there's also stories, too, of Saudi Arabia being the next piece of the Abraham Accords puzzle. And there's another story about Saudi Arabia. Shoot, did I delete that? This one. If Israel doesn't wake up, U.S. will advance Saudi deal without it. Like, just some interesting rhetoric coming out of there. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
I totally agree. I think a lot of normies kind of got inundated with rhetoric about Trump's art of the deal style with the trade war kickoff, the anchoring concept that all of a sudden everybody was talking about. I think I'm not belittling that. I'm saying I think that was part of the play there, was that you've got normies being like, yeah, art of the deal, arguing back and forth about that. As we talked about on this show, one of the core concepts of the art of the deal is anchoring, where you throw your anchor all the way out there and you're like, this is what we're going to do. And then everybody drags it back and it's like, no. You end up halfway to what you wanted. So people think of that when it comes to business deals. But I think Trump does this with all kinds of deals. He's doing it with peace deals. The Gaza thing, I think, is an example of that. It was so sort of crass and uncomfortable for most sane people, including MAGA supporters, when Trump was like, you know what, we're going to take over the Gaza Strip and like build casinos. Whether or not that eventually happens, like, cool, make it a new Riviera. I think the underlying story there was one of hope, of saying like, this is a beautiful place. He said the same thing Ghost often points out about North Korea. This should be like one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world. Like, there was some of that in there. But I also think that Trump was baiting out and saying the correct public response to this, especially by Middle Eastern nations, is no thank you. We will take care of this. And that second part is, I think, exactly what he wants. I agree with you that Saudi Arabia is going to take a big role. Palestinians are going to take a big role. Maybe the Israelis are going to take a role. I think we're probably going to see, as a core component of the Abraham Accords, of sort of the renewed Abraham Accords, what do we do with Gaza? We being the operative term there. So I think, a lot of us believe we are heading toward major peace deals. Obviously, Russia-Ukraine's the most famous, but Middle Eastern peace deals, Israel-Iran is probably next up after that. But I think that you need this period of sort of healing, not to be corny about it. And if you had all these Middle Eastern nations that were at each other's throats for our whole lifetime, sort of like kicking the US out of the room, but in a positive way, and saying like, we're going to show the Western world that we can all sit at the table and figure out what to do here. And that's probably going to be an ongoing narrative for years of like, what's the newest sort of talks about what we're going to do with this area. So I think it's going to be a long-term narrative, and I don't think Trump wants to be in the narrative. I think he wants to be kicked out of it.
Well, kind of, because that's what the Abraham Accords are, and he's going to take his credit for that, because that's what he does.
But then he's going to get away.
But that's the beauty of it. He doesn't have to actually be directly involved. The United States doesn't have to be directly involved, but it was still his thing, and it's going to work out. And this is okay. You remember a couple of weeks ago I was talking about Zelensky and Ukraine, Russia, and maybe it was on a show with Chris. But that situation, like that war, at some point is going to be untenable for the enemy to continue. I don't see Zelensky as being controlled. I know you do, maybe sometimes, and other people think he's a white hat, whatever. I try not to even play the white hat, black hat game anymore. But in terms of like that war, at a certain point, just like our election systems became untenable for them to steal from Trump, it's the same thing with that war. It's going to be untenable for them to continue that conflict, and they're going to have to like assign the peace deal. And it almost feels like that's what we're waiting on, because Zelensky is the problem child who's disrupting the whole thing along the way. Well, this story here out of, again, the Jerusalem Post, I feel like I'm becoming Ghost. This is like the fourth story I've read from the Jerusalem Post. A senior American official.
Be Bitcoin talk and Majus.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Oh, dang it! I should have had my thing ready.
Did Shipwreck?
The Jews.
There we go. Did what?
Shipwreck said she was deleting somebody's videos by accident. I was wondering if it was all your
oh no,
all your Biden videos.
She had her own she had her own like studio set up, but I put a couple things in there, so I don't know if she deleted that or who knows. Anyway, a senior American official delivered unusually sharp criticism of Israel's conduct in hostage negotiations and warned that the United States is prepared to finalize a regional agreement with Saudi Arabia, even without Israeli participation. According to several people who attended this meeting, said that Washington is growing increasingly frustrated with Israel's approach to the stalled talks. If until now they paid the price of not ending the war, today the price will be much heavier for Israel, and not just for the hostages, the official reportedly said. Like they're getting upset with Israel for not moving forward with this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like the Ukraine situation where you have the leaders and the leadership in Israel who is constantly being the ones who are preventing the resolution to the situation. And at some point that's going to become untenable for them. And then what happens at that point? I think what happens in Ukraine is we're going to see elections and Zelensky out of there and removed from the equation. Are we going to see the same thing in Israel? I don't know.
Either way, whatever we see with the leadership there, I totally agree. There's a template here. One of my favorite, I do think it was comms coming out today, was Trump announcing May 8th as Victory Day, related to the Americans in World War II over the Nazis, obviously. May 9th is Victory Day in Russia, and it celebrates victory of the Russians over the Nazis. So, like, that's one of those right out there. And on May 7th, which is today, we are told that, speaking of Zelensky, the Ukrainians launched the biggest drone strike attack in world history on Russia. That's what is being claimed.
I mean, there was an entire movie named Attack of the Drones. I feel like that was probably the biggest one in history.
Yeah, this is the second biggest fake drone strikes in history. The point there, to your point about the sort of position these people are being put in, I think these are those kind of choice to know comms of Trump saying we're trying to remind everybody of the U.S. victory over the Nazis. Putin is trying to remind everybody of the Russian victory over the Nazis. And what happens? The Nazis are trying to ruin the parade. Literally. The Nazis in Ukraine are according to the story, hitting Russia to disrupt the Victory Day parades when there's a ceasefire going on. That's supposed to go like May 7th through the 10th or something like that. So again, this is all according to the central narrative, but similar to Israel, it's putting Ukraine and Israel in this position where Russia and Iran, probably down the line, are going to be seen as increasingly coming to the table with the rest of the world, with the West in particular, and being reasonable, while the formerly victimized protagonist of the central narrative, that being Ukraine and Israel, are going to be seen by the normie hive mind as increasingly attacking and provoking and escalating. So I just thought the Nazi comms and the Victory Day comms were a little bit of extra spice.
Yeah, I'm finally reading Trump's. Okay, first of all, this is the drone attack you're talking about, 524 drones, and this is supposed to be like during that ceasefire thing. Like, do you remember when they had the previous ceasefire, and there was a story told that Russia bombed someplace in Ukraine, and Trump, this was right when Trump was going to the Pope's funeral, and he sat down with that little one-on-one meeting, the confession for Zelensky, and he came out of it like, I'm so disappointed in Putin. I can't believe he would do this. He needs to stop doing it. Well, what's he going to say about this? 524 drones from Ukraine during a ceasefire? Insane. But I'm finally reading this this proclamation from Trump about Victory Day for World War II. Mm-hmm. And this line right here, in the wake of the December 7th, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States righteously entered the fray of what would become the apex of the eternal battle between good and evil. The reason it sticks out to me is this December 7th date is Executive Order 13961. No,
And he's got the righteous word in there. That's clearly a righteous Russia comm. They've been fighting eternal evil.
This is a band, so he's probably referencing them a little bit.
Yep.
Apex, is there an Alien versus Predator movie or like something like that? Or...
That's a stretch. The other ones were bang on, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Okay, my bad.
But I do think when he's talking about battle between good and evil, this is that inversion. We ended up talking about the Nazis quite a bit at GART, the panel with me, Matt, Ghost, and Zach. And, I think a big reprogramming that is kind of in the offing right here that this audience is front running is who did win World War II really, and where did the Nazis go? So, this loops all. Isn't it interesting that in back-to-back days, we've now got Trump mirroring Russia's victory day over the Nazis? You loop this all the way back to 2022, and what did Vladimir Putin name the special military operation? A denazification effort. So Trump really wants to drive home the point to everybody that evil is represented by the Nazis. And as it turns out, there are still Nazis on the game board. It's not just Ukraine. There's Nazis in Israel. There's Nazis in the United States. There's Nazis all over the place. They're just not quite the Nazis that they told you about. I'm not talking about World War II. I mean in the modern day. It's definitely not MAGA.
What day is Russian Victory Day? Is it the 9th?
It's May 9th.
It is May 9th for sure. Well, that's the parade.
Yeah. I believe that's the day, though, as well.
Okay.
Although it could be the 8th, but I think it's...
May 8th was observed as a Liberation Day. In 1967, a Soviet-style Victory Day was celebrated on May 8th. Since 2002, German state has observed a commemoration day known as Day of Liberation.
Victory Day is Soviet Union over Nazi Germany in 1945.
The Russian Federation is officially recognized May 9th since 1991. I wonder why. Most other countries observe Victory Day in Europe as May 8th. Why would they have
Was it the next day
days
for them? Because of the time difference?
Well, that's what I was trying to think here. Is why did Trump put this out? How far ahead? What time did he put it out? Yeah. And I was going to do what's the time difference? Are they doing it at the same time? Did this come out at the same time as something was kicked off over there? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the Russians have been observing it for a while, but this seems to be new for us. So again, I think it's just those gravitational. These are maybe the Persia stuff's a stretch. I don't think the Nazi stuff is a stretch. I mean, Trump's trying to remind everybody about the Nazis. Putin's trying to remind everybody about the Nazis. And I'm curious to see in the central narrative how far the Nazi disclosure goes. Because there's been plenty out there. You've been able to see that that the Ukrainians are Nazis, or the Azov Battalion at least. The New York Times has been reporting on that since 2015, and they even had to say that in 2023 and admit it. So at what point do people kind of just understand that the US and Russia is the ultimate alliance that has the power to mandate world peace, which is what I said in my original writing 3 years ago. And the only thing stopping them has been the globalist system, which was literally engineered by Nazis. Yeah.
It is weird that we don't have a Victory Day thing already.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I'm going through and nobody...
Yeah. Isn't it kind of funny? Sometimes these are those little things that you're you do a double take and you're surely we have that already. I mean, everybody else has that. Turns out we didn't.
That is so weird.
Makes you wonder, because all the Nazis came over here and took prominent positions in our government. So maybe the Americans never got to declare victory over the Nazis. But the Russians did? I don't know. I mean, maybe they didn't do so hot either. The Soviets, they lost to the Bolsheviks. So is what it is. Nazis everywhere you look.
Is what it is. We should do a quick sponsor, I think, from Rumble Studio if we got any.
And yes, Chad, I am using Nazi as a catch-all. I'm not talking about a political party. I think it's a cipher that's being used to explain the sort of globalist warmongering class that we've been dealing with in many nations.
Did you know we have NBA 2K25? Is this like that could be a potential ad read? I'd never seen them in here before.
About to ball out.
I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna refresh this.
I told John about how I scored 1 point and shot 50% in our championship, 1999 championships.
You made a free throw, so you also missed a.
Technically, I shot 50% in a championship winning performance. Those are the only stats that I talk about.
Yeah, you're just the peak of athletic performance, man. Like that's when I think athleticism in basketball.
Well, they couldn't see me, you see, so I could.
Is that why your coach
around.
never put you in? You couldn't see on the bench.
He didn't even know I was in. That's how good I was. And I could sneak around in there, usually get a couple steals a game, and then pass it to somebody who knew how to play basketball.
Attaboy. Yeah, we'll come back to that ad read later.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, what was the other geopolitical thing we were going to talk about again?
The economic stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
One more Saudi thing. I don't think you mentioned this, but I thought this language was interesting. Here we go. Top CEOs heading to Saudi Arabia's MAGA in the Desert conference, boosting investing in the U.S. So there's been a ton of investment back and forth. I think the Saudis committed like $600 billion, but I just thought it was interesting that they talk about MAGA in the desert. Mark Zuckerberg and Larry Fink, exactly who we need representing MAGA in the desert. But yeah. U.S. corporate titans heading to Saudi Arabia for an investor conference. So this is parallel to Trump's visit, May 13th. Sam Altman, Boeing. We got David Sachs. Scott Bessent and Lutnick are going to be over there. The boys.
Why do they have to go all the way over there though to do this? They're all here. They've all been around Trump for the past 4 months. I don't know. I'm expecting some sort of like huge economic investment. Wasn't it Trump who's like, you could up that to like $1 trillion or something? Yeah. Wasn't that to Saudi Arabia?
Maybe he'll sell them like the NFL or something. He'll just seize the NFL and be like, take it.
I mean, that would be ideal, but I doubt that's going to happen.
That was the other thing we were going to maybe discuss is the proof, I believe, of the pincer on the Federal Reserve.
We can definitely get into that. The economic stuff, I didn't really have anything else crazy to discuss. I think I heard there's going to be a trade deal announced tomorrow. Curious to see how that or who's going to be first. Wouldn't be surprised if we don't get one. Bessent was testifying in front of Congress and no, I should just find that. So did you see that exchange?
Bessent?
Yeah. The lady was like, tell us who your trade deals are going to be. And he's like, no. And
some of the rumors are India would be the biggie out the gate.
Oh, yeah, because of the stuff with Pakistan?
Well, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I guess it could be. That'd be great because then Trump would get to be like, yeah, not only we're wheeling and dealing, but when we make business deals, we're stopping wars. But the reason I said India and a lot of these financial analysts have been reading have been like India is the one is because they just passed China in population and they're a huge manufacturing base. Obviously, we've got Modi. He's part of the band. He's one of the boys, as is Xi Jinping, but the people don't know that. But if you're looking to escalate this kind of public, if you're looking to give Xi Jinping a reason to come to the table in the public narrative, India signing a major manufacturing deal with the United States puts an ungodly amount of pressure on China. And talk to death about what I think is going on with China. But I think that, Trump, Bessent in particular, has been using the word global reordering. He's saying we're not decoupling from China, we're reordering trade. So I think the pie is getting split up differently. If India comes out first, it puts this public pressure on China. And it also, I think, gives China sort of they can save face to their own people and be like, we actually had to make a deal because India's going to take our lunch, basically.
Yeah. Well, China and the United States, they're meeting in Switzerland this weekend to start negotiations. So that's notable. But yeah, I mean, the next stop for a lot of these businesses that are going to be leaving China because of what's going on with this trade war, the next stop is India. It's like the most logical next step.
Totally.
So yeah, but then they're also at war with Pakistan, and that stuff's like heating up. It kind of came out of nowhere. So we'll see what happens with that. I think it was the Pakistani president or supreme leader, I don't know what they call him, but he had like a statement today. It's like, we were going to fight till the very last drop of blood. India made a mistake here or something. So
yeah, when I was a kid, I think you learned when you were in Boston that we call liquor stores packies. Did you learn that? Was it you who was surprised by that? Maybe it was Chris.
Sounds a tad racist.
Well, I thought I was just being a genuine racist. I thought that we called them that because of Pakistanis. Turns out we call them that because it's short for package store. But I choose to think it's racist as well.
I guess that's where my first thought went. So does that make me racist?
It's bicameral.
Racism doesn't exist anymore. We defeated racism at GART.
I said we're bringing it back, though. You guys,
by defeating
we're rebranding it. We're going to make it funny.
Making it cool again.
We're going to make it funny.
Yeah.
That was a great panel with JB.
Yeah, it was fun. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Like JB. I think he did a show this morning all about that topic, like the N-word and crackers. I think it's like literally what he called it. So,
the reason that the crackers just never took off is because it just isn't that funny.
It's really not. But see, I didn't even know. I always thought it was crackers because like saltine crackers are white, and that's what, it's cracking the whip. That's what it's from. I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I
learned that this weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was saltine crackers as well.
Yeah.
If you got to explain the joke, it's just not. But the pincer move that I was referencing is a few weeks ago on the show. I was talking about all my harebrained theories about what's going on with the Federal Reserve. Well, today, speaking of China, we got the Chinese, their markets open way ahead of ours, right? Like 12 hours or something ahead of ours. So they kind of start the financial news cycle every morning. The PBOC, People's Bank of China, cut rates by 50 basis points. So essentially what they're doing, go ahead.
Didn't they also inject like 1 trillion yuan or something into their system?
I believe that number was coming out of the effect of the rate cut, but I could be wrong there. Maybe
I'll look it up. You can keep making your point.
So John and I were talking about a few weeks ago. I've been saying that, and Trump has been telling you this. I did call it like a day before that watch for Trump to start leaning very publicly on Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve to cut rates. And my theory here is that Trump wants a massive economic boom on an actual level, which is the manufacturing, the trade war, the reshoring, and on a stock market level. He's only going to get the second in asset prices if he gets the Federal Reserve to cut rates. And Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, as we all know, they are a political, partisan organization, even though they are not supposed to be. They do not want to cut rates because that is going to give Trump a literally unprecedented victory where he's going to be getting job numbers exploding and asset prices exploding, which basically has never happened. So real economy and fake economy both going up at the same time. That's what Trump wants, heading into the second half of the year, I think. So what happens today? People's Bank of China comes out, cuts rates. Why are they doing this? Because the trade war is putting pressure on them. Xi's leaning on them, obviously has much more direct control over there. Cut the rates, it weakens their currency, it allows asset prices, etc., to go up. It buys them time. I'm not saying these are good things, by the way. Don't take this as me advocating that like cutting rates is a good thing and fake money is a good thing. Ultimately, I've been saying that I think China and the United States are executing a pincer move against the central banking system and to reorder us back toward a sound money system. So when China cuts rates and the Federal Reserve does not, in the middle of Trump's negotiations with China, Jerome Powell is being seen by Larry Fink and BlackRock and Ray Dalio and pick your super famous investor guy in the US. Jerome Powell is being seen as directly interfering and hamstringing with Donald Trump's ability to negotiate with China by making financial conditions in the United States more difficult. And the kicker, I want to give credit to Zero Hedge because they're probably the best when it comes to calling financial policy ahead of time, even if they're fake based on many other things. So I'll just share what they say at the end here. The kicker here of why this puts Jerome Powell in such a bad position says all eyes and ears now focus on what Powell says at the presser. For Powell to explain the difference, September 2024, weak soft data, tight financial conditions, August market crash. What did they do? They cut rates by 50 basis points. We were talking about this at the time. This was to juice the economy for Joe Biden heading into what?
Can you zoom in?
Oh, zoom in.
Yeah.
Where do we go?
Sorry.
Right here. So this is what the Fed did in September with the same economic conditions that are going on right now, like identical economic conditions. So Zero Hedge says May 2025, weak soft data, tight financial conditions, April market crash. Pause. They're not doing anything. They're not cutting, they're not raising, which we've been saying for 2 years. I said Trump caught them for more than that. Trump caught the Federal Reserve and put them in a position where they are unable to cut rates and they are unable to raise rates because doing either is going to give him a huge victory. But now you've got the financial media that are not Trump guys saying the Federal Reserve is now basically waging soft war against Donald Trump in favor of China in these negotiations. So this is why I think it's a pincer with China. The financial media is never going to get on board with that. But I think that what did the rate cut in the PBOC do today? It trapped the Federal Reserve where everybody can see that they're being entirely political and partisan and they're not supporting the national interests.
100%. Because the entire context of China doing this was to prepare themselves for these trade negotiations.
Yep.
It came 10 hours before Powell went out there and announced to the world that he wasn't doing anything. And you're exactly right. It exposes them completely. And what they did with the cash injection, I did find it. It was they lowered the reserve requirement ratio, which is the amount of cash banks must hold as reserves. And the cut by 50 basis points will release 1 trillion yuan.
Okay. Yeah, so that's an effect of the cut.
Yep. It lowers how much cash reserves they have to keep, and that cash is going to go out the door.
Right.
Allegedly. So
That's why they call it, by the way, people, when they say they're printing money, it usually doesn't come in the form of literally new money creation. It comes in the form, to John's point, of releasing liquidity that they previously had to hold.
I think with the United States, it might mean actually printing.
It depends on what they're doing. When they cut rates, they're printing without creating new money.
Yes. But sometimes they actually do just create and print new money.
Yeah. But absurd.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's the Powell thing, because he has until what is it, May next year that his term is up, and they're going to replace somebody.
I forget, but yeah, I mean it's coming up.
I'm pretty sure, and I keep going back to the Scott Besson article or interview that he gave in October of 24 before the inauguration, where he said, we have this potential idea. You just create a shadow Fed chair who you nominate and get this guy confirmed through the Senate a year ahead of time, and he's just talking about stuff behind the scenes. So the market's going to respond to the next Fed chair based on what he says. They're going to have to respond to both things. They're going to respond to Powell in the short term, and then long term to the new guy. And that's a way you can control the narratives and the markets without actually having to remove Powell, who is going to only be further exposed as a political tool for the opposition.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't know which direction they're going to go with. I go back and forth on are we going to get to the point where Trump does remove him? Ultimately, I think I lean toward what you laid out, is that because often I think what we do on the show is try to say, what would optically be the best possible outcome for us in the long run, for our movement? I do think it's what you lay out. But with everything I just laid out, I think that this is sort of what we talked about with Israel and Ukraine tonight. This is all kind of the same thing. If you think about
it'll become untenable.
Exactly. And it gives the public mandate. Clearly Donald Trump wants a public American argument about the fact that the president, really, what does that mean? The American people have no authority over the people that create our financial markets, and they're the custodians of our financial markets. So how do you get the public mandate to shift that Overton window and get how do you get centrists to say maybe Trump should fire this guy? Maybe you have Jerome Powell be the one that is basically seen as ruining our negotiations with rival nations and stagnating the U.S. economy. So Trump gets to be like, guys, I told you, if I had the power to remove him, like, we wouldn't be dealing with this right now.
The only thing that I would say, because I agree with everything you said, almost 100%, but like where I differ when it comes to some of this economic stuff, and keep in mind, I do think the pocketbook is the easiest red pill opportunity because it affects everybody. People's finances affects everybody. But when it comes to stuff like the Fed chair and Jerome Powell and cutting interest rates and treasury bonds and yields and all this stuff, it's so convoluted. It's confusing. I don't even understand half of it half the time.
Yeah.
And I like study this stuff. And I don't think like there's enough interest there for the normie and the everyday American to be like, oh, why is the economy bad right now? And then they're gonna go digging and find out like, oh, it's Jerome Powell. Like, I don't think that's gonna be, I don't think that's an approach we're gonna see happen. So it's got to be done in a different way where it's super obvious. And I don't think it's obvious right now. I don't think there's very few people who care or actually talk about Jerome Powell. It doesn't matter how many times Trump like throws him under the bus on Truth Social. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I think though that a lot of what we do is try to front run these things and see the so I can't pretend I would know what form would a public narrative take where you'd actually get the normie hive mind engaged in this narrative. I would agree with you that, we're probably not going to see like normies in the streets calling for Jerome Powell's head. But I do think it's possible, given the right conditions or the wrong conditions, to get a national argument going about the role of central banks. And I think, and currency. And that's a lot of why, G-Money harps on currency creation, fiat currency. How many normies in your life have you ever heard use the word fiat? Like they think it's a car from Europe. They have no idea what that means. I didn't even know recently that it comes from the Latin root, which is to create something out of nothing, right? Like it's hilarious that they all refer to it that way. They're not supposed to refer to it that way, but they're giving away the whole game right there.
Do you know what Bitcoin's at right now?
Is it at 100 again?
Close. 99K.
I saw it. You know what's so funny? I call this when I talk to G, I call it Bitcoin psychosis. Like once you buy in, you're like, why isn't it doing anything? And then it starts to go up, and you're like, no, like chill out, like come back down. I'm not done.
Let me buy more. Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be over 100 soon.
Yeah. And then it might go down again. It's volatile, but
Buying
it reacts to these things. The big narrative out of Bitcoin recently has been it's been shocking a lot of longtime analysts, quote unquote, because typically it completely follows fiat money flows.
Yeah.
Even though we think it's a reserve asset, but it's not doing that lately. It's kind of moving in its own direction. So it looks like the beginnings.
Which I'm definitely good with that. Doing its own thing.
Yeah.
Badlandsmedia.tv/river, guys. If you haven't started buying like $5-10 a month, I recommend you doing so. It's only going to continue to go up in a yo-yo format. Yep. Okay, we should get to probably our final little discussion point tonight, and it has to do with. I've been thinking a lot about this lately. Anyway, it's something Chris talks about. It's something a lot of us talk about, like the constitutional authority of all the branches and whatnot. But there was a specific post that Trump put out today that really got me. Like I was going back and reading the Federalist Papers and whatnot and digging into that again, because it's like, why is Trump even talking like this? Because it's so absurd. It's absurd on its face that Trump would put this post out here. And it just got me thinking, okay, so this is his post. Our court system is not letting me do the job I was elected to do. Activist judges must let the Trump administration deport murderers and other criminals who have come into our country illegally without delay. And this is not the first time he's posted something along these lines. He's like basically asking for permission from the judiciary branch to like run his government. It makes no sense. But then I went and read the Federalist Papers, Federalist 78 and it's a really good one. If you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to do so. Let me pull it up here. And there's a couple really good lines in this that I want to read. Oh no, I think I had it in my post actually. Let me go back to that. Yeah, right here. This is from 78. Whoever attentively considers the different departments of power must perceive that, in a government in which they are separated from each other, the judiciary, from the nature of its functions, will always be the least dangerous to the political rights of the Constitution, because it will be least in a capacity to annoy or injure them. The executive not only dispenses the honors, but holds the sword of the community. The legislature not only commands the purse, but prescribes the rules by which the duties and rights of every citizen are to be regulated. The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, no direction either of the strength or of the wealth of the society, and can take no active resolution whatever. It may truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend upon the aid of the executive arm, even for the efficacy of its judgment. And so it's basically saying kind of what we've been saying, like a lot of the stuff that the judiciary is putting out, it has no force. Like there's no enforcement mechanism. Okay. And then thinking further, the Congress has been totally feckless, like totally useless to what Trump is trying to do. They're clearly not working in step with Trump and trying to codify his agenda or do anything that would actually benefit the American people. It's like they're in this mode where they're trying to pretend to be super productive. They're trying to be the social media influencers promoting all the things that Trump is doing and trying to do and saying he's doing. But when push comes to shove, they're not actually implementing any of his agenda. Okay, so not only do you have Congress working against Trump, you also have the judiciary. So two of the branches are actively working against the executive. And this is kind of what we saw back in 2020 when I believe Trump implemented devolution, the whole basis for the show and this network, the devolution theory. Trump implemented some sort of continuity government plan. We don't know the full details of it, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence he did so. And if that's the case, what are the details of it? Did it end? We don't know. We don't know if we're still living through that devolution period. We had that interesting thing where Biden partially revoked Executive Order 13961 the day before Trump was inaugurated. That was like a big signal thing, like, hey, we're moving to this next period. This is a transition period. We're on to the next phase of whatever operation is going on. Because everybody here on Badlands, like, pretty much believes there's some bigger operation going on behind the scenes. But when we're seeing it like this, and it's so obvious, and Trump is drawing attention to it, like, hey, I can't do what I'm supposed to do because of this other branches, both of them. Like, what does that say about the actual period we're in, and how do we move beyond that? Because we're stuck in this mindset as a general public, and we see it all the time, where it's like, in order to fix our country, we have to rely on these people that are clearly showing no interest in fixing our country. We can't rely on Congress, the beneficiaries of fraudulent elections, to fix our election systems. But when I had Representative Cloud on today, he's like, yeah, we have the SAVE Act out there. We just got to pass that. We just got to pass it. Like, we got to fix our elections by passing bills, and we're expecting the fraudulently elected Congress to do that. Not going to work. Same thing with the judiciary branch. Like, we're expecting these people who have completely overstepped their constitutional authority to all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, we're going to be the ones that fix our country. We're going to be the ones that bring us back to the way the Constitution was supposed to be. It's not going to happen. So, like, what does that mean about the period we're in, and how do we move forward? Because it's not going to come from either of those two branches. It's very clear to me now. It's got to come from something else. And at the end of the day, I think the way we've operated at Badlands is like, it's we the people. It's the devolution sandwich. We're the ones that need to do the thing that needs to be done, whatever that thing is. I don't know if we know what that is yet. I don't have a solution here, but it's got to be something that involves us. And that's why we operate in the way we do, where like we can see something on its face that people celebrate, like Anna Paulina Luna putting out this bill to repeal the Patriot Act that's never going to actually pass. And people are like, oh, she's the greatest, she's part of the plan. But really, like, that's not going to actually get done unless we do something about it to get it done. Like, we have to continue to push that through and call out the senator. I don't even know. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but that's where my mind's at, and we can riff from here for a little while and see what happens.
Yeah, I thought that was great. There's a lot there, but the devolution sandwich idea, this is why I know it keeps coming up for a reason. it's crystallizing as our mission statement going forward, and it's not and it's come up organically. You know, as you said with Badlands, a lot of us have independently and then together been pushing in this direction. And ironically, I think the reason we've been pushing in this direction is because we've gotten so much pushback about this direction, which is why people get their opinions very hurt about the trust the plan stuff. I always caveat it by saying I've got the We Are Q article at the top of my Substack, right? Like, I don't believe that the Q drops were disagreeing with this. Now, some do. I don't believe that. I was activated. I said this at GART. I was actually activated and energized and optimistic and encouraged by the Q drops to get active. And there's plenty of other people that many of them watch this show. But the devolution sandwich, I think that's described in the drops as well. You describe it. Trump, I think, is describing this all the time. And then, you know, what cracks me up is we get key players or people that this community believes are key players in whatever continuity of government, Patriot plans that may or may not be in the offing. Whether you're talking about a General Michael Flynn, whether you're talking about Kash Patel, who's obviously in the administration right now, Steve Bannon, who, you know, for everybody that he's not just a guy that shouts out rhetoric, he wrote some of the most famous and the best Trump speeches of all time. I believe, unless I'm mistaken here, that Steve Bannon is the guy who wrote the speech that is the intro to this show. Those are Steve Bannon's words coming out of Donald Trump's mouth. Donald Trump is the symbol. He's the cipher. But now take it away from Trump for a second. What does Steve Bannon and Michael Flynn and Kash Patel and pick your guy have in common that we trust to a large degree and that have been forwarding this stuff? Local action, American action, forward motion, it's responsibility, right? Like, yes, there are patriots. They are trying to do their part. But they can't. It's not this game. I think people think it's this game where they're like, oh, you know, like it's like watching your kid ride the bike. Dad's gonna grab you if you fall over. Like, but ultimately you don't have to learn to ride the bike. No, you do have to learn to ride the bike. At some point you have to learn to ride the bike. Yeah, the patriots are there and they're helping as long as possible. The way I see this period that we're at right now as a community is that analogy. It's like, how long does dad have to hold on to the back of the bike? I think he's going to hold on as long as he thinks he needs to, which is why I do think there are Patriot plans. I don't think they're just going to be like, F it. The American people didn't get it. Like, they're on their own. Like, you know, they're going to try to help us as much as they can. But it's up to us how long they have to hold on to the bike. And the sooner you start pedaling under your own power and steering under your own power, that is what I think guys like Kash Patel and Michael Flynn and Steve Bannon are talking about. They're saying, yes, there are patriots here, but you need to start pedaling. If you just sit there with your feet up and you don't grab the handlebars, we're going to be stuck here forever. We're going to be stuck in a permanent present and not moving forward. And then I'll pass it back to you, but I want to, if you have a response to that, but I also want to get into sort of something you mentioned a little bit in there, which is the kind of post-Devo term, or what stage are we in from a Patriot Plan perspective, and what's the battle space? Because I also think that that's fascinating. But just from our action and our mission, it should not be contradictory to think that there are Patriot plans and to think that we're part of those plans, and that being part of those plans is not observational. If you're observing a plan play out, you're not part of it. You're just watching it.
Yeah. And this is, you know, we get a lot of pushback and hate on this stuff. And like you said, we're pretty much everybody in Badlands, I believe, is, I would say, a pro-Q person. Like, most of everybody has read the drops. I'm probably the only one that hasn't read all the drops. Right. But in one of my articles, I talk about how, like, just from a logical standpoint, it's clearly obvious it was like a real legit operation. And I would speculate it was done by the good guys because of the effects that it had. But that being said, like, believing there's something bigger going on behind the scenes and believing that we have to play a role in that is like why we do things the way we do. And we get pushback when we kind of question like some of the decode stuff that we see, like the as Jordan Sather says, the decode salads. Like when we call that stuff out and those people get mad at us for being gatekeepers It doesn't make like we're just some of that stuff is what I'll leave that there. But when it comes to like our form of government, and this is something from Federalist 78. I'm not going to read it exactly, but I'll read a section here. The fundamental principle of a republican government admits the right of the people to alter or abolish the established constitution whenever they find it inconsistent with their happiness. Like our entire constitution was based, this country that we're living in right now was based on a bunch of people who got super pissed off about their king and were like, we're done with this. We're going to throw this government off our backs and take things into our own hands. And then in the founding documents that we have, they said, whenever your government, which is probably going to happen at some point, starts to overreach, it's up to you guys to get them off your backs again. Like it's up to you to alter your constitution when you feel like it's no longer serving you. And we've been there for a long ass time, but we've never had the ability or the window of opportunity to do it like we have right now. And
peacefully and peacefully, which is what we're always advocating, because we are in a position that we've never been in before. Go ahead.
Yeah. And if we could, it's possible, guys, that we miss this window of opportunity. If we just sit here and wait for Trump, like to hold our hand and drag us across the finish line, like if Trump is who we think he is he gonna do something unless the people want it? Like everything he does is about pushing the narrative and getting the mandate, like the consensus. Like that's what he wants from people. He's trying to drive that consensus. But if we don't ever get on board with what he's pushing us to do, it might never happen. Like I say this about the devolution term all the time. Like Trump implementing devolution relied on him knowing that he was the real legitimate winner of the 2020 election. He needed the actual mandate of the people in order to know that what he was doing was constitutional and the right thing to do. If he didn't have that, I think he would. Yeah, exactly. If he didn't have that, I think he would have walked away. I don't think he would have done it. But he knew that he legitimately won that election, and so he took the steps necessary to safeguard us in the meantime. Like that is part of it. The consensus needs to be there, and sometimes you have to drive that consensus. Like we have to be part of that.
I love the way you just phrased that, because I was kind of searching for, what is it that we're doing? Because if I want to go into the plan stuff, I totally agree that there is a Patriot plan. I mean, that again, whole devolution theory, whole Q drops, all this kind of stuff that presents these actual guardrails to try to make this transition period. We do believe we're in a transition period into the golden age. It's trying to make it as peaceful as possible, as smooth and as peaceful as possible. I like how you put that we driving consensus, because my whole thing on the narrative and what I've been doing, on this show forever, and obviously Chris talks about it all the time as well. You wrote a couple of articles about it in the middle of the Devo series, especially the one with Rich Higgins, etc. The narrative is a lot of how that consensus driver is occurring. So what you led this segment off with, Trump's truth post calling out the judiciary, we're mature enough at this point to understand that Trump isn't just doing that to complain or bitch. He's doing that to, exactly your point, to drive consensus. He's trying to manufacture, or provoke, I should say, mandate. What is mandate? Consensus. If you have consensus, you've got the moral right, the moral authority to move forward on an actual level. And I definitely think that there's been a lot of Patriot engineering. I think part of what the Q drops were doing, I think the biggest part of what the Q drops were was a narrative operation. I mean, it tells you it's the largest advanced information dissemination program ever. Biggest advanced drop in history, right? If you take that for what it is, what the thing that we keep coming around to lately is, what was the purpose of the Q drops? It's exactly, in my opinion, what John just said. Consensus drivers. Be the frame and support. So if you're trying to help Trump, it's okay to try to get people to understand the information in the drops. I think that that's good. But you can't stop by just wanting to observe the battle space. You've got to go forward and drive the consensus forward, which is why the way Chris puts it a lot is, thinking of us as rangers in this community, rangers, forward scouts, like we are, what I say often is we're threat assessors. We are looking forward at the threats. So when John says there, hey, there's a chance that we miss this opportunity, that is not a dooming take. We're here so that we don't miss the opportunity. And so Trump has the public mandate and the public consensus to move us in the direction we need to go in. And if part of that move means that recognizing the illegitimacy of our central banking apparatus, as we talked about earlier, and of our court system, as you brought up, then that is absolutely what we require to move forward, rather than just trying to, speaking of gatekeeping, gatekeep people who are calling the courts illegitimate by saying, well, it's all part of the plan. Yeah, the plan is to, I think, reveal that the courts are illegitimate. So we need to drive consensus forward, as you said, to make them legitimate again. The same thing with elections, etc. It's not about waiting and just going like, oh, well, I'm sure there's a solution here. You're the solution. You're the consensus driver, as you said.
Yeah. And I know there's like a part of this process that we don't know. Like there's a step that's here, that's going to be here at some point that we're gonna have to cross. Like there's a barrier or something that needs to happen, and I don't know what that is. And I'm sure Trump and them do. Like they are involved here, and I do believe they're not going to let us fail. But that doesn't mean it's not possible. Like the enemy still has a say, and we need to make sure that we don't let them fail either. Like it's a both and type of thing here.
Yeah, it's like think of it like Trump needs us, right? Like I think that it becomes an either or discussion of like you either trust Trump or you're against him when you're trying to push things forward. It's like, no, if Trump is the general, so General Quast was talking about this in detail at Guard. Always great to have conversations with him. And these were not just private, like they were public out there. He said some stuff on the mic as well. So I'm not, talking out of school here. But he was talking about battlefield dynamics specifically with regards to information, and said, like at some point, the general does not have eyes or boots on the ground in your specific area, in your battle space. He has deputized or imbued his lieutenants, which is all of you, with the authority to make sovereign decisions. If you're moving in line with the mission, which is peaceful, constitutional taking back of our nation. Like we do not need to wait for permission to do that kind of thing.
Well, think of what Trump said in his final campaign speech of 2016. It was in Georgia. I think it was like October 31st or November 2nd or whatever. He's giving the government back to we the people, right? Like that's what he set out to do. He's going to give the government back to we the people. He can give us it all he wants, and he's been giving it to us for a long time. But if we don't take it, what's it matter?
Yeah.
Like we have to literally take it from him. And the constitutional form of government, like as I said earlier, is where we're the ones that are actually involved. It's a very small government. But instead we're like, this is where we talk about the cheerleading and stuff. Like we're watching the stuff play out, the TV characters, as Chris says, and they're doing all these things. And we're just like, oh, that's great. That's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. But that's not how our government is supposed to be. It was never designed that way.
Right.
Taking it back is us getting more involved on a much smaller local level. And that's why, guys, one of the things I'm like, I don't get prideful often, but I'm like so proud of what we've built at Badlands here is these Badlands groups. Like the community we have in Badlands is, you can't beat it. There's like 60 groups all over the country, maybe more, and growing. We had 100 people show up and sign up for the New England Badlanders group. And you guys in the chat too, there are groups in your area, I would almost guarantee it, who get together every so often, whether it's actually in person or via Zoom or whatever, and they're building their own little small community in their area. You guys can do it too. Badlandsmedia.tv/groups. There's a little form on there. You can fill it out. Somebody will be in touch with you and tell you who's in your area that's in charge of the group. Or if there's nobody in your area, you can start the group in your area. And then we can work from there. It's by the way, I believe I'm going to be going down to Florida in July for a Badlanders meetup. I'll keep you guys posted on that. Just a little teaser on it. But yeah, join one of those groups. So we got so many good people in the Badlands community, and that's why I love the Guards, because you get to see them, and it's like one big family.
Yeah, well, and Ash actually just put a comment here on that note, kind of. BB, if a model for future sovereign society, in a model for future sovereign society, what do you envision gets people off the crutch of Trump in that respect? No substitute or replacement for him. What has to happen for post-Trump sovereign? Obviously, I don't pretend to have the answer to that. but this is not a cop-out. I genuinely believe that what we're trying to do, including with that question, is try to figure that out. Like, and when you bring up the GARTs, like I refer to this in my writing as the process paradigm. Like at a certain point, there is the actualization of sovereignty only emerges out of the attempt to actualize the sovereignty. Like it is this thing where by asking, you will actualize. It's like the laserized thing that maxis do with Bitcoin. When you're talking about actuals, I think Bitcoin's a big part of it. Like I do think it's a big part of it. Now I would even say that even if you're somebody that doesn't think like Bitcoin is the future and you think that it's a deep state Prussian rug pull or whatever, the idea behind Bitcoin maximalism is, I think, gets us closer, if applied in various ways, I can't pretend to know what all those are, of removing power from abstract control systems. I think before we can like build a new future, build the new world, the golden age, etc., part of the crutch, part of getting off the Trump crutch, etc., I think is reordering society toward a point where, whether it's through technology or consensus protocols, which is, I think, a lot of what we're kind of building at Badlands, is this sifting process of trying to figure out what we do and don't want, which is another way of saying figuring out what we will and won't comply with, right? So Bitcoin is just a really easy actual example that exists in the real world of, let's say you're the Canadian truckers and you're protesting and you're like, well, damn, I did everything you said. I tried to take action. I tried to make my voice heard. I tried to take to the streets and like pull power away from the abstract power of the government. And then what did the government do? They seized my bank account. Like, okay, well, in a future society, what if half of those truckers had their net wealth in Bitcoin? Well, that doesn't mean that the government can't do anything to them, but it does mean that we've just eliminated a massive attack vector for the government to go after those people, which was the major attack vector they used. And I think I said this at Guard Deadwood last year. If I envision a golden age, it is an age where we genuinely, unironically, are sitting there saying, it matters very little to us who our elected representatives are, because we have enough sovereign power projection, financially, etc., or over our local communities, as you said, that the goings-on of the national government matter very little, which was the original idea. That was the whole point of it originally. So it's kind of a game theory type of thing, and I think the fun part is trying to figure out, how does that work? Like, I'm not saying elections have no role in that, and I think the work that, Ash and CanCon do on that is good in terms of saying, like, what is a system through which we could actually get codified, provable, transparent consensus in American people, because I think that that's important.
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like either. It's a great question. Like, what does the post-Trump era look like? And I think a lot of it depends on how the Trump era finishes up. Like, we need to get through this period, but I would love to get to a point where we don't need Trump or somebody to tell us who the heir apparent is, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to be dictated to by Trump that JD Vance is going to be the guy. Like, we should be able to determine that for ourselves. And as you absolutely said, it shouldn't matter who the president is. Like, it should have very little effect on your day-to-day life. But it's not like that. It's never been like that. Our federal government is so bloated and so big. But we have so much to fix. So much to fix. And that's another reason why these Badlands groups are so amazing, because not only like do you build a community and friendships and like have that to try to impact your local area, but you also have that to lean on when things aren't going well. And it is possible, not trying to be a doomer, but just trying to be a realist. Like, think of everything we have to fix. Not only do you have to fix elections everywhere. How many counties are there, Ash, in the chat? We have so many elections to fix and right the ship. And that's not just like have the system be good to go, but we have to get the people in there out of there. We have to fix our entire financial system. I could go on and on. Like, we have so many things that are wrong that Trump is in the process of fixing. That's why there's so many darn executive orders, but none of it's lasting without it being codified. and
Right.
we're not going to get that. It's very obvious we're not getting that.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if anybody does. Maybe Trump and them do. They just haven't revealed it yet. But we haven't, and this is why I don't think we've gotten out of that devil phase yet, because we're clearly seeing the pushback from the same old. Like
Yeah.
nothing much has changed from Trump's first term to now. And I used to say, like, during the devolution period, like, imagine how things are going to be when we have actual legit elections and we have a Congress in there that's actually all America first, and they're implementing Trump's agenda. That is what the golden age is. But we're talking about the golden age and moving towards that golden age, but none of the actuals are taking place that will get us there. It's the enemy is lying in wait. They're trying to wait out Trump. They're trying to do everything they can to stall and stonewall, and we have to overcome it somehow. And again, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, Ash had a couple other things in there too that just said, do you believe in direct democracy with the right consensus protocol? No.
We don't need to
know if that's
debate
a trap.
Ash from the chat. Okay.
I don't even know if she's trying to debate me, but I think that that's a good point on what we're talking about, of saying when I talk about, representation, I'm talking about I often refer to Anons, etc., as a decentralized collective. That is ultimately that language is starting to be used, not because I think it's from me, but because I think it's a first principle by some of the people orbiting Trump when they're talking about global trade. I believe the micro is the macro is the micro. When Scott Besson tells you that he's not trying to decouple from China, he's trying to reorder the global trade system. It's not about consensus, it's about cooperation. So, to me, the ideal society, the ideal golden age is such that we are cooperative as Americans, but we do not have to do anything against our will, literally anything. As long as you are not interfering with the property rights or the human rights, the sovereign rights of another human being, you should be able to do anything. Like this, obviously this is kind of a libertarian mindset. Where I differ with a lot of libertarians is in, I often say, like, everyone goes through a libertarian phase, and then you grow up at a certain point, and you understand the value of cooperation. But this all comes down to power projection. And it's not just about Bitcoin, it's not just about financial stuff, it's not just about voting, it's about all these different things. Ultimately, if government has power over individual sovereigns, that's what it's about. And going all the way back to John F. Kennedy, peace through strength. The macro is the micro. He's talking about that on a nation state level. Donald Trump is John F. Kennedy, essentially. All of his policies are JFK policies. I've been saying that for years. He talks about peace through strength all the time. And that's the same thing on an individual level. If your county on your local level has direct power over you, my mortgage came today and my mortgage went up, right? I signed a mortgage when I bought this house 5 years ago, and it's higher now because the county decided that the house is worth more. So now my locked-in mortgage is higher, and we all deal with this all the time, right? That means that my county, the payment is higher because my property taxes are higher.
Okay.
So that's what I meant. My property taxes went up.
Yeah, because your mortgage.
So my mortgage, yeah, but it doesn't matter, right? Because this is the same. It becomes semantics. Ultimately, I am sending more money to the town than I was sending before, because they have deemed the thing that I own to be worth more money. That means that they have power over me, and ultimately, that's what this all comes from. That all comes from power.
Yeah, that whole thing is a scam. There's a comment in the chat I want to address, and then we can probably go to the rants after this and the boost and stuff. But I think this will be a good thing. We can maybe even rip off this for a little bit. From Forever Tool 67, we have had great change in our country's morale. I totally agree. Trump winning it changed the morale. Everybody's super pumped about it. And when we talked about this on election night, the night of the election, when we were celebrating having a blast, like that was one of the most fun live coverages we've done. But we were talking, like Chris made a great point, as he's always made, like that's a kind of a problem because that breeds complacency. Like think of an alcoholic or somebody. you are going to drink and drink and drink, and maybe it's not alcohol. I'm not. I don't drink that much, so this might be a bad metaphor, but you guys will understand what I'm trying to say. I don't need you nitpicking in the chat and tell me I'm wrong about it. But you don't find the will to change until you hit rock bottom. You know what I mean? And I don't think we ever hit rock bottom. And being in a rock bottom position that's where the most change can be affected. That it'll piss the most people off, right? As a country, our morale changing, while a good thing, and we have momentum and things are good, they feel good, they seem good, we're being told they're good. Is it possible that will breed a little complacency, and it might not get us to a position where we're like demanding the changes that we want to see, which could ultimately make us fail in this moment in time? Is that possible? Because I think it totally is. Mm-hmm. I think our morale changing to where everybody's happy again might not be the best thing in the world. And I know that might upset people, but
there's a fine line. That's what we're always trying to balance. Is there's a fine line between morale, which is absolutely important, and mollification. And, we're not getting on here and trying to doom. We're talking about pushing forward. This whole discussion is, including with the chat, is about what do we need to do? When we're saying that, all of us together, we're all trying to figure out how do we make things better, right? Like, it's the opposite of dooming, which is why it never bothers me when, like, even when I get heated at people and we're arguing about these kinds of things, right? Because I'm like, the whatever comes out of this, even if there's no consensus reached in an argument, is ultimately closer to what could help us than where we were at in the beginning, which is why, and General Quast said this, and I thought it was great at GARP Plymouth, I strongly believe that whether or not you agree with him, we need the G-monies of the world, and I'm not even talking about Bitcoin, I'm talking about the mentality. Even if you come to the logical, perhaps correct conclusion that his methodology or tactics is not conducive to the sort of smooth, peaceful transition that we all would like to have, right? Let's say that you believe that. It is still, in my view, inarguable that his position is the morally good position to hold. And it drives me, not about Bitcoin, but about taxation in particular. And taxation is just an example of the power that the state wields over us, even if we aren't being arrested all the time and all that kind of stuff, right? That's what they're constantly wielding their power over you, their authority over you. So, in the future, General Quast said this and kind of put it to the whole audience of saying, hey, it's up to you guys. Like, at a certain point, you can say that G-money's like, that's unrealistic and we need elections and we need all this kind of stuff. Well, everyone in this movement like hangs their hat on the founding fathers. I don't accept myself from this. That's why I call myself a bitch for paying my taxes. Like, it's to remind myself that there is a moral choice being made here. And I continue to make the wrong one because I am afraid for my family. That is an honest statement.
Excuse too. Yep.
It's an honest statement. I fear the consequences of my bravery for my family. And there are many people at the founding of this nation that felt the same way and made similar choices. Those are not the people that we remember. And it's not a call to do anything. It's just that these are the arguments that need to be happening. You don't get to call yourselves the Sons of Liberty or be known as the Sons of Liberty if you're sitting there being like, well, I mean, once our elections are fixed by other people that, as you pointed out earlier, were put into position by fraudulent elections, maybe they'll take away the taxation system that is illegitimate to begin with. So, there's a reason that people have a lot of respect and legendary status for people like Sam Adams, etc. I do not clip this and make it seem like I'm comparing G-Money to Sam Adams, but it's about the mentality. It's about saying at a certain point, if you pretend Trump and the Patriot movement didn't exist, does that mean that you just bow down to the state, for the rest of your life? These are the kind of questions that I think Trump is challenging the American people of saying, how far is it? One more point here is that I think there's game theory even in what Trump is doing when he's talking about no tax on tips, right? Let's take that for an example. I used to work in restaurants. So I think Trump is hitting the American people with game theory. Imagine he repeals tax on tips, and then there's hourly employees in the restaurant. they're going to be pissed that they're getting taxed because they're not a service-based employee.
Yeah.
Right? The chefs in the restaurant are not making tip money. They're on hourly wages. So Trump is doing the morally correct thing by saying that waitresses don't have to pay taxes, but the guys cooking the food do have to pay taxes. I don't think that that's morally correct. I think what he's doing there is he's kicking off this game theory. He wants everybody in the restaurant arguing about that, of being like, why are you not taxed and I am taxed? This is fucking ridiculous. It's almost like we're probably heading toward a tax revolt, is what I'm saying.
Well, and here's the thing, guys. I would highly encourage you, and I'm not saying this just because it's my show. I would go watch the interview I did today with Congressman Cloud, and I actually have Congressman Harrigan on tomorrow. And I don't know how many opportunities I'm going to have to like interview these people, because I don't think I've ever seen somebody, and I'm again being honest here, I don't think I've ever seen anybody ask a congressman, why should I pay my taxes? But I asked him that today, and he gave a boilerplate expected answer. He's like, well, you got to pay your taxes, and then like just trust us. We're going to do the right thing. We're working. Look what Trump is doing. Look what Congress is doing. Look at Doge. All these things. But that's the mindset we have to have. Like, if you guys are illegitimate, you're clearly not doing what you are supposed to be doing. Like, why should we be paying for this? Like, if you hired a contractor, BB, to come in and like remodel your bathroom, and all they did was come in with a sledgehammer and like destroy the place, and then as they're leaving, like, hey, can you pay me? I'm done. Like, are you going to pay that person? Are you going to pay that person who doesn't?
Very common with contractors, by the way.
Yeah, probably.
But
like,
yeah,
realistically, but you're not going to pay somebody for a service if they're not doing the service. Like, if you have an employee who's not doing the job you hired them to do, you're going to fire them. But why are we expected, under the threat of jail, to pay taxes to a government that doesn't do anything that they're supposed to be doing? And they're literally just corruptly spending our money. They're sending overseas. They're spending on things that have nothing to do with us, but we're expected to pay it. But nobody's asking those questions to the people that we're told are in charge. I don't think Trump's ever been asked that question. Why are we even paying taxes? He's the one pushing the narrative like, hey, we're going to get rid of taxes. This tariff income might replace taxes. But nobody's asking, why do we have to pay when you're exposing all this corruption? Like, that's the type of stuff we're talking about. Yeah,
exactly. It all comes back to power. And when I thought of the meme, the meme where you got the stick figure guy like poking something with a stick, like do something. It is worth considering when we're all we're trying to all do is sort of suss out what we think Patriot plans could be and what's our role in those. Do we want a role in those, etc. Right? We're all trying to actualize our sovereignty. It is possible that that we're looking at a version of that meme with Donald Trump, where the Patriot plan, that the Patriot plan is to keep poking us in a direction to see how long it takes before you get to that end state where you just go, yeah, actually, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And one more point on it would be there is rhetoric that has been on Badlands in the past. It's on other places where Con Inc. in particular, where people will ridicule. They will ridicule the type of patriots that like call themselves sovereign citizens and stuff like that. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I understand there's a lot of silliness there, and they're using like maritime law. Like, the reason I think that stuff is silly is because of the maritime law crap and like how many fringes are on the flag. Even if that's true, we're not following, like, we're only supposed to be following moral law. When I get annoyed at people for ridiculing people like that, it's that those people are doing what is morally right. Like, they are saying this system is illegitimate and should not have authority over me. That is what they're saying. So when people in our movement celebrate people like that getting audited by the IRS or getting put in prison or getting their assets seized, that is a morally repugnant and disgusting mindset to hold. It's okay for you to say, hey, I choose not to do this because I don't want to put my family in a bad position. It's also okay for you to say to other people, I don't think you should stop paying your taxes because I think you're going to have consequences hit you. But if you go all the way and say you are morally wrong for refusing to comply with evil directives, you have become the very evil that you're seeking to supplant. And imagine applying that mentality to the founding fathers. Imagine saying that Sam Adams or George Washington were idiots because they could have been arrested. Like, what they were doing was illegal according to the laws of the British Empire. Like that, we need to get more toward...
They could have been killed. Hung.
Killed. We need to get more toward who is advancing the morally good arguments, not who is advancing the legal arguments. It is retarded to keep yourself in a legal argument framework in a system that was designed to enslave you. And
that when the legal framework is like not even they're the ones that are going outside the legal framework themselves. Totally. But then the laws of God. It's crazy. Yep. Yeah. That was we figured it all out. We figured it all out. We did. You want to get the boost quick? I'm going to do one more Rumble spot, and then we'll do boosts and rants. And we got 1775 coffee. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped in only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for only $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Thank you to 1775 Coffee and Rumble Studio. All right, man. I think there's a couple boosts from the live power hour too, if you want to grab those.
Did we not get those? Let me see. Yeah, we've got, I don't know if this one was read. Micro Toolmaker had sent we read this on the show. He sent $217 over during the show. We did read that one. Much appreciated, Micro. Joe Biden's football sent, my mom served as a firmament between thirsty girls and me back in school, especially with the fertile big booty Latinas. A lot has changed since then, though. And in today's world, if I timed it right, I bet she would have loved Anna Paulina Luna.
Who said that?
Joe Biden's football.
Oh, awesome. I haven't seen him since which guard he came
was it Irvine?
To Irvine? I don't think I've seen him since.
Mark Q Patriot sent one over for Wednesday. Hi, gents. Part 1. China has Chinese people, Germany Germans, Russia Russians. In America, we're mixed. If we truly want to get rid of race baiting and are truly America first, we need to change the mindset and refer to people as such. We are a nation. If you need to refer to someone ethnicity, say that second and start referring to people as American first, meaning American Chinese, American Russian, American Mexican. I believe it to be a great way to change the way people view ethnicity. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Instead of African American, American African, or just American. It's good. Suzanne Nickel, $50. John, great interview with Rep. Cloud regarding his comment on the 3 branches of government. Did he really mean that the founding fathers believed the executive branch was to carry out the will of Congress? Is that his position? I don't think he meant that. He was talking. You actually brought up Federalist 78, which was interesting because I had read it earlier in the day again, and I was going to go there too. But they're the sword that carries out like essentially the will of the people. I wouldn't say Congress, because the whole point of it is to like they're not really supposed to unite with one another to keep each other in check. I don't know. I'm probably not explaining that right, but no, I don't think that was his point. Like he ended up agreeing with me, I think, on that point that I made, that the judiciary, essentially, if the judiciary isn't in agreement with the executive branch, nothing they say is enforceable. Like, so Trump can't be, doesn't have to listen to the judicial branch, in my opinion. Absolutely. Those are the boosts. All right. Okay, we got some rants here. Let's start with Micro Toolmaker. Hey, BB, since Saturday, I've been trying to figure out the unity message thing. Regardless, I'm unified with you and continue to support because of your honesty and brains and humor.
LOL. Where we go on, we go all. Thank you for that rant. I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, man. We've been talking about this a lot. We talked about it on the show tonight. What I mean there is just gatekeeping. Again, we get accused of gatekeeping by some people, which I don't agree with. Obviously, everyone's up to their, has their own opinion. I'm just trying to express my intentions in the info war, and my intention. Sometimes I think that there are some people who want everybody to be on the same page and stay in the same timeline when we all have different ways of going about the info war, to each their own. So that's all I mean is that, and I see a lot of Con Inc people, especially a couple of years ago, and with DeSantis and all that op, that's probably one of the best examples of the unity op, the uniparty. So I think we need to unify around first principles, not around specific interpretations of what each of us believes the Patriot plan is. So I guess that's a way I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. I would say like the stuff that bugs me the most is, like we said earlier, like we all believe there's something bigger going on behind the scenes, but if we don't agree with these like specific ridiculous decodes, all of a sudden like we're gatekeepers and we're not pushing unity or anything, and that's the stuff that kind of grinds my gears a little bit. It's like, no, like we're just, me not believing in your decode does not make me not believe that Q is real, and I haven't even read the drops. Like it's that kind of ridiculous rhetoric. Like if we aren't agreeing with a connection you made or something on a Q drop, all of a sudden we're anti-Q and calling into question there's something bigger going on. It just makes no logical sense. But that's the rhetoric that we see, and
we're trying to do different things. But that's it.
Yeah. Julie Jan, your interview with Cloud today was very professional and knowledgeable. Shipwreck was great. Badlands all the way. Thank you, Julie. ZBM, now I got to hear that Una Panuna song again. Oh, I got you covered.
Una Panuna Banga. Una Paloma Blanca.
Why did my camera turn?
It's a strange camera off symbol.
That was weird. Okay, 1027JS for DPH, $20. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you as always. Cindy Waters have become convinced that a lot of these obvious info ops, like Anna Paulina Lunacy, are basically leaving a trail. Today's headlines become tomorrow's history. This is what people will find down track when searching. John in Connecticut, $10. What?
Maybe they're just trying to make the history as retarded as possible so people dismiss it in the future.
They're also just trying to be famous on Twitter and keep themselves in the cycle of fraudulent elections. Because how could anybody not believe that Anna Paulina Luna didn't win her election when she's so popular on Twitter? That's what happened. John in Connecticut, $10 for JH and BB for discussing the stupidity of APL on DPH. Now hit the button, please.
Una Panuna Banga.
By the way, for those wondering, anytime somebody asks us to hit the Una Panuna Banca thing in reference to Anna Paulina Luna, that's why we play that video. By the way, guys, if you haven't yet, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up.
I think her interview should not be on the Daily Herald. It should be on OnlyLands.
I mean, I understand why you might think that, but yeah, you're probably right.
Nice.
Probably. Maybe I can just do a temporary OnlyLands episode for just her interview.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a sassy gal. I'll see O'Keefe at a party he's throwing on Friday, and I'll see him again at an event on Saturday. I'll report back. Sounds good. Be careful.
Let us know if he made it out of hiding. Oh, so he's doing a party, but he was in hiding?
Yeah, he planned a party. He's not suicidal. Right. He's not suicidal. He's going into hiding, but he had a scheduled party for after the release.
Ask him where he was hiding.
Yeah, be curious.
Super secret.
The final demand. Oh, wait. Angie K. Big announcement post on Last Truth post. He just posted tonight.
He just said there's going to be a announcement. There's an announcement tomorrow, the Oval Office, concerning a major trade deal with representatives of a big and highly respected country, the first of many. My prediction is India, but we'll see.
I think it's going to be Japan.
That's possible too.
we'll see. Angie K. Oh, sorry. Final demand. Love how Trump said Thursday, Friday, or Monday, not Saturday or Sunday, because the news cycle takes the weekend off. Why has that been happening for months? That's a good question. But it certainly does feel that way. Tammy Holland, so you have any opinion on the rumblings of there being a traitor in Trump's closest inner circle? Pam Bondi's name has been one floated around, and Mike Waltz. Do you think it's just more noise? No, I mean, I totally expect there to be somebody probably within his inner circle that's a traitor.
I would not use the term inner circle. Perhaps the appearance of an inner circle. I do believe that Donald Trump knows who's who and what's what. So
that's a good point.
That's why I don't worry about that.
Inner circle and administration are two different things. I was using inner circle when I was thinking administration, like the fantasy team. His actual inner circle, whoever that may be, probably less than 10 people or so. Likely no traitors there. Tammy Holland, just read that on. Tamara C. Flats. John, not sure what your outro clip is, but may I suggest this? I did see that, and it was it's a 6-minute long video. If you're going to suggest an outro clip, 6 minutes is a little spicy for my liking. So I appreciate that. I will watch this, but we're not going to use it as an outro. Back to the rants here. The final demand. DOJ building has an inscription. The common law is the will of mankind. How do we know what is the will of the U.S. unless mankind is standing up, speaking out, stop decoding, and get involved? Great show. Thank you.
I think decoding is good if you're using it to try to push people forward. And
just don't be mad if people don't agree with you.
Exactly.
Gamble 808. Great show, BB. Your New England Patriot was showing. I like that. Nice to see you, Gamble. Andrew Mc.
Yeah, when's the next car you're coming to, Gamble? You coming to Deadwood? You don't have to send a rant. You could. I'll look at the chat.
Well, hey, don't let them off easy. You can send a rant stuff if you want.
Yeah.
Andrew McCulloch. Thanks for the respect you guys always show Steve Bannon and the War Room Posse. I posted the Bernie Wright's commentary on Getter, which is the only app Steve uses. He will see it. Sent to him.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yes. I want
Yes.
to meet Steve at some point.
Bannon's great.
Our accountant met him recently.
Yep, just the week before Gart. Gamble 808. JH, have you heard from Eddie Murphy, agent? I have not.
No, what, for royalties?
Yeah.
Come and get it, Eddie.
Well, let's not antagonize him. RPRN, I'm betting we will have enough to form a convention of states after midterms. Do we need to do that, though? We talked about this at Gart, too. Like,
we don't.
We don't need or want that because it's just other people going to represent us.
Yeah, eventually.
And we don't know who they are.
We are moving into a world where a small number of people do not make decisions for other sovereign individuals. That is not what we want. You know, even one of the things G says that like breaks people's brains is that even if you believe in the representative government of the republic, it stopped scaling 100 years ago or something like that in terms of the population. Like each representative in Congress now represents X million number of people.
It's a lot. It's hundreds of thousands.
Completely absurd to believe that is real.
Yeah. And I would encourage you to go watch the interview I did today and watch the one I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to play a clip as my outro, the one where I ask him about taxes. But I think the better clip was when I talked to him about like the 3 branches and everything. But listen to his answer here. You got to start asking your elected officials, why should I be paying taxes? Like, what are you going to do to make me believe that I actually should be supporting what you're doing? Start asking these questions. Good show, BB. Thought it was fun.
Ash, you were such a straw man arguer. She's in a mood this week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would be too after 2 panels with G Money. I get
Taking
it.
Out on everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's problems with our system. Then she assigns your opinion to you, but then says that you're doing that to her.
Okay, you guys take it off stage.
Yeah,
take it off the show.
I prefer to argue with Ash through other people.
Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna fall for that. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. Hit that thumbs up, and we will see you next time we see you.
Peace.
Well, last question for you. You were speaking of malfeasance and the corruption of the government and this wasteful spending and everything. Why should Americans be paying taxes, seeing how this is what happens? Like that's a genuine question and thought I go through on a day-to-day basis. Like, why am I paying my taxes when I just see it go out the door to foreign wars and NGOs and all this stuff?
Yeah, well, the last thing you're going to hear me come on a podcast and say is don't pay your taxes. Pay your taxes, but be engaged in the process and be engaged. Make sure that we know what's the money's going to, and that's what we're doing with Doge. I'm about to go to a Doge committee hearing. We're working through this process and through oversight capabilities and everything that we need to do in appropriations. I mean, all the work of Congress is supposed to be getting in the details of this. And for far too long, we've let politicians measure their personal worth and the effectiveness of a department or a program by how much money we spend it, as if it was my personal checkbook. I mean, where else do we get away with people like, oh, thank you so much, you gave someone else's money to someone else, and it's bestowed on them as an act of generosity? It's not. It's our job to manage someone else's money, to make sure we're turning a good ROI for that. And we got, thankfully, a lot has come to light in the last few months, and so there is good things happening. We do want to see things moving faster, of course, but if you get discouraged, just think where we were 4 months ago, and we are turning the ship a bit. I'm not making excuses by any means. We need to run harder and faster, but let's stay at it. Let's stay focused. Pay your taxes and work with us to make it as little as we can.
Sorry for putting you on the spot there and putting you through the grinder, but
I pay taxes too, so I get. I mean, it's to me unnerving, because what we've had from the elite is the managed decline of America, and on the backs of the American taxpayer. And they're working hard. It's not the elites who, when we embrace stupid energy policy, it's not the elites who are wondering how to make ends meet. It's the middle class who are, how do I put gas in my car now? I can't afford electric car. I mean, just all the crazy stuff that's going on. And so really it's our job in Congress to remember who we're working for in all these policy issues, and making sure that it's not our personal charity bank. It's not even a question of whether this is a nice or a good thing to do. It's is this necessary? We're supposed to have a very limited framework as defined by the Constitution for what we do, and to leave everything else to the other institutions, families, organizations, and so everything we can to get back to that, to a very streamlined government is where we need to go. And to that point, I applaud the president for his budget. It's a great first step in again course correcting, which we desperately need.